So here we are. We are here with Bill Sharp, who is a filmmaker, and he was the person behind the camera on the Lynchpin of Bensonhurst. Bill, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. I hear you're in a bit of a lockdown situation over there.
Yeah, I just moved to Vancouver, so I'm stuck inside for 2 weeks.
It's a great time to be making some films and some editing and things like that, no?
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Okay, so Bill, do you want to take us through your kind of background? How did you get into kind of filmmaking, and how did you get to the stage where you met Ross and this whole film?
Well, Ross and I used to be bartenders together in New York City in Soho, and we both were painters. And one day, I actually had a show. I sold a ton of paintings, and I bought film equipment. And because Ross and I had been working on a screenplay before, and I had a little background in photography and painting, and I used to work for a company called Jib Jab, which is an animation company. So I knew a little bit about editing and animation. But anyway, we started doing some like small films together. And Ross had done a couple of films before that. And then one day, Dominick Montiglio showed up at Ross's doorstep and he moved into Ross's house. And I just was like, I got to hear these crazy stories. And I just started filming. I didn't even think about it. I just set up the camera on a tripod and, didn't even have a wireless lav. I had a line lav that just put it, I didn't really care what the aesthetics were. I just wanted to get these crazy stories down.
So rolling back a little bit, you meet Dominic. At this point, what do you know about the mob? I mean, you grew up in New York?
I grew up a little bit as a baby in New York City. Then I moved Western New York, but I went to college in Manhattan in the early 90s. I mean, I knew a little bit about the mob, but not to the detail or how it really functioned. I was never really into mob movies. Yeah, I came in with a blank slate asking Dom probably some of the dumbest questions.
Right.
But I needed the answers in order to come up with the storyline.
Sure.
And funny enough, my intention wasn't really to create a mob story about him, but I thought his stories were so interesting. It just grew.
So tell us, how did you actually meet Dominic? What's the story there? How did that happen?
The first time I was introduced to Dominic, Ross was having a show at the Red Bull Gallery in New York City. And it was an opening day and I went to, support my friend. And there was this burly, tough Italian man in a tracksuit standing next to him. And, Ross had mentioned that, he was sort of a mobster a little bit. And I'm like, really? And I was kind of frightened of him at first because, I mean, he's a pretty big dude for, even being in his late 60s at the time. He could kick anyone's butt. And I was like, and it was tough. And so, but then I realized after talking to him a while, he was one of the nicest, funniest people I've ever met.
I mean, you probably had the whole, the fact that you're all into art. I mean, Dominic's into art and painting and things like that. So I guess you had that common ground there to start with, right?
Yes.
So how did you get from meeting Dominic to actually starting this whole project? What can you tell us, like, what that process was? What happened?
Well, first off, I go to Ross's house and find that Dominic from the gallery has moved in into Ross's extra spare bedroom. And, because Ross and I were working on we had done a movie beforehand that I'd written and directed. And we actually had Dominic act a couple of scenes in it for us. But I got to start to know Dominic and started to hear these stories. And so I just, something in me said, I have to film this. This is like, either it's going to be crazy because he's making up these crazy stories, or this is real, and it's sort of historical footage that we're getting. So I just plopped up the camera, didn't really think about it, and just started. Ross would actually prompt some questions, and then Dominic would just go. And and he's such a fantastic storyteller. His voice and the way he describes the scenes and what was going on and the vibe. And I would ask questions because I didn't know what a VIG was and what that meant. And so, Dominic would lay out how these things worked. And, after years of filming him, then I had all this footage and I started compiling it and trying to make a documentary out of it.
So when you learned who Dominic was, did you actually start doing some research of your own, as in like, who is this guy? Did you read Murder Machine?
Yes. I read Murder Machine. And Dominic, was still friends with the, one of the head of the organized crime divisions in New York City, Frank Pergola, who, one of his first cases was the son of Sam. So we got to speak with him. And because at first I was like, this guy, there's no way he did all these things. And then Frank Pergola, we spoke with Frank Pergola, and he was like, these are all true stories. This is no bullshit. Sorry.
You got various, you got his early life, you've got his, little journey in Vietnam, and then going into the mob life, the whole transition in between those phases of his life, and then going into witness protection, and now working as an artist, and the close relationships that he has with the officers that arrested him. So it's quite a journey that he took. In terms of artwork, visually, where did you take your visual inspirations from for the film?
There wasn't a lot of consideration. It was more practical. Ross had a painting studio in his apartment, so I plopped it up there with the paintings in the background, surrounded by his imagery. And so one of the ideas was trying to go into his artwork to tell the story, because a lot of his paintings are about the mob, Vietnam. He was a doo-wop singer for a while as a kid. So I wanted to show a little bit of that. I don't know if I achieved it as well, because I think his stories were just so incredible. They sort of took over instead of the artwork. I love his artwork, but his stories are, historical.
So, do you think the process for Dominic was easy? Being able to open up to someone to tell his story, that must have brought back a lot of painful memories. Did you have any obstacles to overcome it in that regard?
Yes. We had plenty of obstacles with Dominic. He, I feel he has a lot of regret, and he doesn't want to relive these painful memories, even from Vietnam. I've asked him what are his nightmares, and his nightmares it is Vietnam. He said it was very scary for him. The mob stuff was, he was a warrior at that point, and he came back, and his uncle said to him one day, if you can kill for your country, you certainly can kill for your family. And that right there gave it some justification, and for him to do what he had done. I think that was powerful. His uncle sort of got him into the mob.
It's been filmed over a number of years. Firstly, how do you get the motivation to keep going on a project for that many years? It must be quite something to do that.
Yeah, I feel we have gold. Even though it was shot in standard def, before HD, but the visuals, I don't really. Yes, they matter, but I wish I had HD. Yeah, I know we have something that people would be interested in, and I know it could be even bigger. It could be even a TV series. He has so many stories through so many almost timelines, from the early 60s to Vietnam to the being in Berkeley and the riots, and then going into the Mafia, then to the, you know, witness protection program, all the crazy stories about that. I mean, my film only scratches the surface. There's so much more that we have that we can actually put out. But yeah, no, why am I doing it? Because I would like to see this film, you know, out there, and see, you know, hopefully Dominic can get some redemption.
Well, that was one of the things that I did mention to Dominic. I said it would be good for him to tell his story and get it out, you know, because there's a lot of people that, you know, can judge Dominic for what he did and how he lived his life. But I mean, there's nothing better than getting his own viewpoint, and then the audience can decide, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know, you know, the rat stuff. I whatever. You know, he made his bed and he lies in it now, and it's not a very good life, I don't think. I mean, he's happy painting, but I think it's very difficult for him. I think he has a lot of regrets, and he's suffered, and he still continually suffers. I think if he could turn it back over, he would still be singing and playing music.
Absolutely. So, I mean, like for you, what was your most favorite part of the whole project for you?
Oh gosh, there was a lot of times it was a lot of fun. Ross and Dominic used to do a fake radio program, and we filmed called Harry Night, and it was hysterical. The dynamics between Ross and Dominic, you have this killer, and they have Ross and them going head to head, arguing and fighting and just having fun together. It was like a party. It really was. Every time we'd go there, it was, you know, it could get very dark and heavy, and that was sort of hard. But the lighter stuff, I don't know. I almost enjoyed all of it. I can be a little dark myself.
The really great thing about this whole project is that it's very. It doesn't seem like it's been planned to a T. It's just very freestyle and flowing, and it's very creative. And I like that about the, you know, when I watched it, I thought that this is just, it's real. You know, it's not too polished. It's not too perfected. It's just as it was. You know.
Yeah, it's almost like his paintings. If you see his paintings, he paints on these little pieces of canvases, and he puts it up and he glues it on and does another one next to it. And so there's all these little pieces of stories that are, it's like a collage. And that's kind of how we shot it. We, you know, the intention wasn't like, hey, we're gonna do a mob film. It was more like, let's get this down. Let's get this stuff down. And then it's like, okay, let's make something out of this.
So after you wrapped up the whole editing process and putting it all together, did the film turn out as you would have thought, or was it, when you started the project, did you think I want a certain project, and then at the end, did you get that, or did you get something completely different?
You know, I'm never really satisfied with what I'm doing. I could still go in there today and start reworking it. I still see glitches and things like that are driving me mental. And music, and at some point you have to stop and just let it go, and then if you can, do another one.
Well, that's a sign of an artist, isn't it? I mean, like, an artist is never happy with his own work, right? I mean,
I'm never, yeah. I look at it and cringe sometimes, like, oh. And we shot it when it was, you know, standard definition, which is tiny.
yeah.
And so it's grainy and dirty, but maybe that suits the mood of the piece. But you know, I still would like it shiny and high def. I mean, I do have a lot. The later footage, I have high def footage.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've seen it on Netflix. There's a new documentary series. It's a 3-part series, and it's to do with a mob. It's called Fear City, and that kind of, it kind of almost covers Dominic's time. It's like the late 70s to like the early 80s. I don't know if you've seen that, but visually that was quite interesting.
I'd love to see it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So where does Billy Sharp go now? Where now he's packaged this film up and hopefully we'll get it released at some point.
Yeah. I'm currently, now that I'm in quarantine, I'm starting to work on this, take all the footage that we have and do another one.
Yeah.
Dominic.
Right. Okay.
Because I left a lot out that was, I mean, it was pretty graphic.
Wow.
And I can, oh yeah, and crazier stories, way crazier. So
I mean, as a mob fan myself, the details is what I love to hear. You know, the little mannerisms of how a certain person was, or how another person talked or walked. You know, it's the little details that give you the kind of picture of who someone was, because there's a lot of mob documentaries and films that kind of give a high level view of what these people were like, but in terms of the nitty gritty details, there's a few things out there that do show that, but that's what I think true mob fans really get high off. You know.
yeah, I have plenty of nitty gritty, crazy. There's a whole section that I didn't really put in with when Dominic befriended the Westies and they became friends.
Yeah.
And all the crazy dark stuff they did with you know, killing and chopping off people's heads and really bloody and gory. I mean, I have a lot of blood and gore that I didn't put in, and some of it's very entertaining, but dark.
Absolutely. I mean, like the DeMay. I mean, he was, you know, associated with one of the most brutal crews ever to exist in the Mafia. You know. So I mean, and in fact, he was associated with two crews that were the most bloodiest in the mob. You know, the Westies and the Mayo crew. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure the stories don't end with the first part of this film. So
I remember one scary moment is when Dominic's like, we're gonna go back to my old neighborhood, and we took the van out and we went to Bensonhurst on 86th Street, and he showed us the spot where he had shot someone. His uncle actually shot him, this guy,
wow.
right in the middle of broad daylight. And Ross and I were freaking out, going, "You could be recognized right now. What are we doing?" But the neighborhood has changed a lot, but they're still there.
Sure.
Even I moved from Brooklyn a couple of years ago, and the Gambinos were still in my neighborhood. In Carroll Gardens, Brooklyn. They were still there. You could see them hanging out in their social clubs. There was they shot a movie on Court Street, and there's a I think it's Marco Polo Pizzeria got shot up for having a mob movie being taking place there. So it was still going on, and it's still going on today.
Wow, how interesting is that? I mean, like that's another question actually that I haven't actually asked you. At any point of the making of this film, did you feel that you were in danger, or did you think maybe this isn't such a good idea?
Yeah, right from the get-go. You know, I don't know about the mob. I don't know if they have a vendetta against him. I know that a lot of the people that he had dealt with are in prison or dead. He told us, and so did Frank and Art, that we're you know, they wouldn't want to get us because then that would draw attention to them and it'd be a waste of time. I mean, and plus we didn't do anything with them. We're just telling a story, you know.
Right. Okay.
So, you know, we didn't do anything. We're just telling a story.
Sure. I mean, technically, you guys would be classed as civilians, so I think you should be all right.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
Right, Billy. Well, it was wonderful talking to you, and hopefully, you know, you guys can get this film out, and you know, I'm sure the viewers are going to absolutely love it because, you know, as I said, I'm a big mob fan, and you know, I watch anything that I can get my hands on, and the viewers will not be disappointed when they watch this film, I'm sure. So, congratulations with the film, and I'm really looking forward to to hearing what the subscribers to this channel actually think of the film as well once it's up and available. So thank you so much for your time.
Bye-bye. Cheers.